I'm gonna probably have him try a couple characters and things like that. But you can go ahead and have a seat. This seat right here. One more. Get everything ready.
Can I take a picture of that?
Please do. Definitely encouraged to. Our layout for the Hebrew class is kind of backwards because we have to move everything so that we can see the whiteboard here.
Right. No, it's good.
I'll go ahead and do my intro while you're doing that. Shalom, Yahweh Hashem Yashar B'Katah, Yahweh Shema Atam Ba'Hashem Yahushai. We're at the Isupk, started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in 1969. Today is the Hebrew class, the Lashawan Qadash class. As we always do on Fridays, we start to go into the ancient language so that we can get a better understanding of our culture. And this is very important too. As you see, during the Passover, you may have heard brothers speaking out of the Torah or out of the Old Testament specifically, in a language that doesn't really sound like the Hebrew that you see in Israel today. The reason why is because it is an even older version of what we know as Hebrew. So the ancient Hebrew, as you can see here, in its oldest form, is this right here on the left side, which I'm going to have to fill in some of these that have been scratched up against. And then you have the modern Hebrew, which is what we call the Assyrian Hebrew, because it predates to approximately 700 BC. And that's what you see even in Israel today. However, we just use the same pronunciations as the ancient Hebrew when we read it. So in doing so, when we learn this, it's important to understand why we actually go through the efforts to learn the language. One of the scriptures, I believe it's in the Apocrypha. You know what? I want to read that. That way you can see what we're talking about here. Let me go ahead and get that real quick. So, everybody knows the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, of course, being, let me see if I can find it real quick. The Apocrypha being a part of the original 1611 King James Bible. Ecclesiastic is. Okay, here we go. All right, so in the Apocrypha, you have Ecclesiasticus, which is one of the books of the Apocrypha that is a lot like Proverbs and Psalms, a lot of good wisdom that's in them. And before we even get into the actual chapter itself, check out what this man actually wrote as a preface before. Now, just to give you an example, I'm going to go ahead and get to the part where it mentions the language. It says, whereas many and great things have been delivered unto us by the law and by the prophets, and by others that have followed their steps, for the which things Israel ought to be commended for learning and wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must needs become skillful themselves, but also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without, both by speaking and writing. My grandfather, Jesus, which this man's name was also Jesus, but of course wasn't the Jesus that we know as the Savior. So Ecclesiasticus actually means the wisdom of Jesus, the son of Sirach. We know Yahushua to be Jesus, the son of Joseph. This was somebody with a similar name that was, this of course predates the Christ that we know. But nonetheless, this man had a grandfather named Jesus as well. It says, when he had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets and other books of our fathers, and had gotten therein good judgment, was drawn on also himself to write something pertaining to learning and wisdom, to the intent that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to these things might profit much more in living according to the law. Wherefore, let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. So I'll give you an example. And I'm not somebody to speak out of pride. I am just a humble servant of Yahushua who's put on this earth to have studied enough to the point where now I can share some of my experiences with the people that are also awakening to the truth, right? And what we just read in the Apocrypha, the author of Ecclesiastes says that when things are uttered in the ancient Hebrew, they have more power than they do in other languages, like English, like Spanish and French, because this is what Lashawan Qadash is, and I have it written here in both versions. Lashawan Qadash. Lashawan Qadash. Now we pronounce it the same way, no matter how it's written, whichever version you choose. Here's the good news: we only use consonants. We don't use any vowels. And the modern Hebrew uses like some of the pronunciations of these words are close to what you would consider vowels today. We keep it even more simple because that's the way it originated. Okay. And even in the book that we have from Yale University says that the original Hebrew was only consonants. And that's what you see here. So there's no extra letters. In fact, we think of English as was it like 26 letter alphabet? This is less than that. Now, what I was going to say is when we pray in Hebrew and then we translate it to English so that everybody that attends class can understand what is being said. But when we pray in Hebrew, the reason why we do that, some camps don't do that, but some that at least have studied enough to understand the importance of it, especially in the Isupk, we read the ancient Hebrew because it is more powerful. Meaning what? It means it has a stronger connection between us when we speak and the Most High. I can speak from experience. There was one time when I was living with a friend, and my friend had a wife with sickle cell anemia. She was going through an episode, a shock. She was in shock. She had cooked dinner for us, and we were studying at the dinner table. And what happened was she started to go into a state of shock, convulsions. Sickle cell anemia does abnormalities to the blood, and it's a very dangerous thing. It can put somebody into shock to the point where they can end up in the hospital or worse. So she was in a really bad state at the time. And in fact, her husband, which was my roommate at the time, called the police. He called 911, and the paramedics came up to the house. They, came through the door. They pulled all of their equipment out while she was, struggling to even move or function normally on the couch. And her vitals were not looking good, and you can hear the concern in the paramedics' uh, voices as they spoke as they were tending to her. And at the time, because of this kind of student that I am, because I understood that this language is more powerful, I pulled my friend to the side, and when we were studying the scriptures, and I said, why don't we pray in Hebrew that the Most High may show some mercy on her? Because she had just got through cooking dinner for us. We were eating fried eggplant. I've never had eggplant before. It was really good, and I've never had that before, but I appreciated what she had done for us and how she always just had such a humble spirit on her that it would be unbrotherly to at least, it would be unbrotherly to not try something, right? So we went to the kitchen and we started praying. As the prayer goes, as we say, Yahweh Hashem Shai, which means the Most High in the name of Christ, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Hagun, which means to bless, heal, shield, and protect. And then we would say her name. Her name was Malachi. And we kept saying this for about 2 minutes. And over the span of 2 minutes, the paramedics in the other room, because we were in the kitchen, right? And like say the kitchen's right here, and the living room's right here, and there's like a brick wall separating us from the kitchen. Me and my friend were right here, and we were praying in the ancient Hebrew. And within the span of 2 minutes, her vitals normalized. She was able to sit up on her own. She didn't end up even going to the hospital. When they first came into the house, They were afraid of even moving her because if they were going to put her in the ambulance, she was at risk of dying in shock on the way to the hospital. And we ended up praying in the ancient Hebrew, and I'm nobody with, I don't operate off of pride. I don't even know that what I was doing was helping. What I understand though is that this language is powerful and it was originated for our people so that we can have a stronger connection with the Most High. If the Most High gave me the opportunity to help somebody that, is among the nation of Israel, I would thank him for that. And I wouldn't ever try to imagine that I'm on any kind of level because I was given the opportunity to have our language used as a power to help heal somebody, help protect somebody in a time where they're in need. Because I know myself, the times where I'm in need. You ever been on a hospital bed? It's a terrible feeling, I would only hope that there were people that were around me that would want to support me just as much as we did that day. But those paramedics ended up leaving, and she was perfectly okay for quite some time. At least while I was roommated with them. So the ancient Hebrew is important, not only because of situations like that, but what kind of exclusivity comes from having your own culture when you're amongst other nations in society? Like, you ever seen people talking in a language you don't understand and you kind of feel left out because you don't know what they're saying? Well, our people have been given the opportunity to have our language, our original language, which is almost considered a dead tongue, at least this version of it, which is the most ancient form of Hebrew. We've been given the opportunity to relearn this in a time where the rest of the world is going into chaos and politics is at an all-time, low as far as approval ratings, and the economies are in trouble and turmoil, and banks are starting to crash. And all of that is going according to prophecy, but at the same time, we're given the chance to learn what we were supposed to have known from the beginning. And so when we read the ancient Hebrew, it is read from right to left, right? Let me see if I can find one that writes better. So as we write from right to left, we write the alphabet just like how it shows right here, right? Abba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za. We'll start with these. So whenever I'm pronouncing it, I like to go in a cadence that's similar to a military cadence. Abba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, and then it is repeated. Okay, Abba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, and then the audience or soldiers that are studying will also do the same thing. Now, just backing up a little bit, what I got the brothers doing, just to kind of recap for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, is we take it letter by letter, just like how when you were in elementary school and middle school or even pre-K, if you started writing at an early age, it was about repetition. You have to drill it into your mind just like any other language. So you have to actually go and write it. Gives you the chance to practice your style, right? Gives you a chance to get your handwriting on point. And every time that you write it, you actually want to say it. You say, ah, ah, ah. You got to understand, not only is this the oldest language on the planet, this is also the language that will supersede every other language once Christ is ruling on the earth. This is going to be the norm. How much more important is it now to get that head start on understanding it, because you may be the person that's, ushering in this language as the norm on our planet that belongs to Christ. You know what I mean? It belongs to the Most High. It belongs to the nation of Israel through these leaders. Right? It's just as simple as that. And what's crazy about is that it already looks very similar to what we know. You see that? It already looks like an A. So it's kind of like you have a head start on it, because as long as this character has existed, you go like this. Now it looks familiar, right? But it's just kind of fell over. The letter I, if I'm not mistaken, actually represents cattle. The head of a cattle. If you were to draw, heck, I don't know, like a cow, right? It represents a cattle head. It was a hieroglyph that we were able to write that was going to give us the understanding of maybe perhaps that this is where the cattle were supposed to be at, on a farm. And then you would have a sign and you would write this on it. This is where they go. This is where the cattle go. Or you might have a different part. This is where the water is held at, right? So there's characters for that. So in keeping it in its most simple form, it is a hieroglyph in the sense that it is a picture. But first and foremost, it is a character that represents the language. So is what we do. And then as you write it from right to left, you just repeat it. And just like how you did in elementary school, you take a sheet of paper and then you start to do maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 lines of just writing it. And I'm telling you, after you've done this for every single character, maybe you do this a couple times a week, and over the span of a month, you'll be able to know what it is from looking at it. You'll know exactly how to pronounce it. You'll know exactly how to write it just from when you say it, because you'll see it in your mind. So you have to actually practice it enough times to where it just kind of burns in your mind, right? You ever leave a TV on the same picture for like an hour, and then you try to change the channel, and then you still see a burn in from what was showing previously on the television? This is more prevalent in plasma TVs. It's not so much the same with liquid crystal displays like most TVs now, or LEDs. But that burn in is what you're trying to do with your mind. You're actually writing it enough times where it just kind of sticks. So there you have ba. So like you have we have that. And then you have ba, right? And you know what's crazy? This is actually a word right here. If I write Abba, right? This means father. What I like to do is I like to implement vocabulary in a lot of when we're practicing. Abba means father. Ma. Here's the letter ma, as you see right here, which almost looks, I don't want to say it looks like an M, it kind of looks like a W, but if you compare ma with na, you'll notice that just like how M has more squigglies than N, ma has more going on than N does by a small amount, right? So when you look at ma, this was mother, right? So we're just going over some basic vocabulary here. But you can see Abba. I mean, we already have a word just from what we've covered so far with the Hebrew language. Abba, Ama. And so when you see Abba in the Bible, like when you read about, let me see. I'm going to get a little bit complicated, but I'm really just recapping what we talked about last week. So Genesis 28:7. I know this is kind of a bit much right here, but let's check it out. Let me see if this marker works better. Yeah, this is way better. We're gonna have to get some more markers. So here's the sentence. And that this is the sentence we're gonna write. Jacob obeyed his father and his mother. My handwriting is kind of terrible. But we're going to write this in Hebrew, okay? So first is, we're so used to English and the structure that English has. Hebrew is kind of similar to Spanish in the sense that you may have a word with modifiers like possessive adjectives that are added, or you might have characters that are added to the beginning of the word. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see, say you have wa, Well, actually, I'm going to do this in the ancient Hebrew. Wa. Yeah. Shemai. Wa Yashemai. And I'm going to actually write down what this is saying. This is saying, and that obey, because you're gonna understand that this is how it's read in English, but when it is written in Hebrew, the sentence structure is a little bit different. And that obeyed, so Jacob, which in the ancient Hebrew is Yah, Kwa. And what am I doing? I'm really just using these characters here. So, Wayashemai, this Shemai means to obey. Shemai. When you write it in Hebrew, of course, it's read from right to left. Sha, ma, I. Shemai. So this is the root word, but we have modifiers here. And as you see, let me see. These are actually added at the end of a character. But wa means and ya means he. If it was a female that was the one that was obeying, if we were talking about a female, it would use the character tha. This character here. Oh, it's lacking. This one right here. It says, and that obeyed. So basically what's being said right here is that the person that's obeying is a male. That's why we use Yah. And that obeyed Yaquab, which means Jacob. I'm wanting to get to this point here. His father, which is, there it goes, Ba. Now, what's the root word here? His father. Now we're getting a better understanding of what Hebrew is like, right? Abba means father. Abba as the root word. Now, this is a perfect example to look. His means wa, okay? So where you see that wa, that's actually right here. That's how you know that, like, this is where it's interchangeable. Abba Yahweh, technically either one is right. Abba Wa would also be correct. This is just because the Yiddish that they use when they write the Torah in modern Hebrew has a couple extra pronunciations in some cases. But you're seeing the Abba Yahweh right here. And as you see, the possessive adjective is added to the end of a word so that you understand whose father it is. If it was her father, it'd be with a tha at the end. That's just a rule that you have to remember. It's one of those things. Yah is for males, tha is for females. So, Abba Yahweh. So, and that obeyed Jacob, his father, and now you have the and, which is Baal. Sure, what's up?
So here, when you put a ha, is it not, you said tha.
Yes.
So why is that different?
So, oh no, you're absolutely right. When it's at the end of the word, it is ha. Now, there are examples where it'll say like, and he obeyed, right? And that's where you'll see it there. And I actually have examples of that too. Well, I'll go over an example of that here in a minute. So in this particular case, we're talking about Jacob, who of course is a male. So you're seeing Abba Yahweh, and Ama. Let's see. Yeah, see that's. Let me make this more simple. Yeah, just to make it more simple. Abba Wa. This is perfectly fine. This is grammatically correct because you're literally just taking that Wa.
Yes.
And this is always a good way, a reference point, right? So you see the Wa right here. So you take his and you just throw it at the end of this word, Abba. Abba Wa. And Wa'al is the word for and. This is actually another phrase for and. Wa. You see that? And. If you want to keep it even more simple, technically you just need to use that. The only thing that gets tricky is that sometimes when we're translating it from say a Torah, or if we use like the Bible Hub app like we do during Sabbath service, you'll see sometimes that they try to implement other versions of the same word. And it's really just extra writing for what is essentially the same thing. And his mother would be, as we know, Abba means father, Ma means mother. So Jacob obeyed his father and Ma Wa, his mother. I can get that. 1 second. Hey, sorry. What's going on? So I'm going crazy. If you need to pull up another chair, go ahead. Yeah, I don't know. Slacking. So what we're reading right now, again, is we're going through the alphabet, and we came across something interesting because just from the first 2 characters, we already have a word that we can build. Abba. Abba. And you know what's funny too is that Abba is actually the word father, even in what is it that the Arabs use? Aramaic. Because again, the ancient Hebrew is the oldest language on the planet. So if that is the case, a lot of languages derive from this. That's why even English has some similarities, right? Like za, la, right? Even ka. This just looks like a backwards K, honestly, right? So even in modern language, you see a lot of that. So what we're writing here, we actually managed to take a word here, Abba, and I'm giving you an example of how this is used in our everyday language. Wayashemai, and that obeyed Jacob, his father, Abawa, wa Amawa. That's it. It's that simple. I take the word Abba, and because we're talking about Jacob, who is a male, it would then be, you would just be putting a wa on it. If I use a different name, right? Slice, what is your name? Shauna, right? So we're just going to say, how to spell that? S-H-A-W-N-A. I don't know if there's a Hebrew version of Shauna, but we're just going to say, just in case, Shauna, right?
Shawana.
No,
I'm serious. There's a Sha, there's a Wa, and there's a Na.
All right, so let's say Sha.
You're just going to put the Wa and the Na together.
But would I be joining it? Shawan?
You're going to be joining the Wa and the Na together.
So it'd be Shawan, right? Shawan. Or if it's Shawana, that's kind of similar.
There's a Sha, there's a Wa, and there's a Na.
Yeah.
So you're going to connect the Wa and the Na together.
We just did it on the fly. So just to kind of give you an example, though, if it was you that was obeying your parents, then just like how you mentioned and you pointed this out, the ha is added to the end of the word, right? So ha looks like this crazy looking F, right? So how do we say this? Abaha wa amaha. Amaha. We're just keeping it simple like that. Now, there's a lot of rules that go into play when we start talking about the Hebrew and which ones do connectors. But a rule of thumb that I've been given by some of my higher ups who I've been studying with is that as long as we pronounce the core word, Shemai, which means to obey, right? As long as we pronounce that, technically you are correct. And having all these crazy other, trying to make it sound different. Like, I'll give you an example. So a lot of what we call fake Israelite groups, they'll say shalom. We say shalom. Why is it that we say shalom and they say shalom? Technically, when they say shalom, it's closer to the modern Hebrew when they pronounce it that way. It's technically correct for their way of making Hebrew, but ancient Hebrew is just as simple as it can possibly be, which is exactly how our people are from the beginning. We try to make the language as simple as possible because we do that with every language. Sup, fool? What did I just say? What's up, fool? Right? If I say, what's good with you? Or if I say, know what I'm talking about, we say, no, I'm talking about, like, we try to shorten everything so that we don't have to use as much breath to say what is effectively the same thing. Now, this is an extreme example.
Like they say door, we say dough.
Like they say cheddar, we say cheese. You know what I mean? Like it's really just a matter of us trying to shorten it as much as possible so that you can say a lot within, less. How do I say it? Less
Syllables.
Less syllables. There you go. Exactly.
Like guap.
Read
Ducats, greenbacks, bread.
this part again. I want to copy up because I know you guys. I don't know if y'all were tuning in when we first started, but I want you to check this out right here. So I want you to read. We started off the class by reading the preface for Ecclesiasticus because understanding the importance of the Hebrew. Just read this side right here. Go ahead, Caballero. You might want to get close to my mic. That way the audience can hear you.
This ain't
The preface.
this ain't the actual book, is it? This is like a pre-beginning of it.
Yeah, it's like the author had this to say before he wrote the actual chapter.
This don't have no chapter or verse.
That's all right. Go ahead. You're good.
Whereas many and great things have been delivered unto us by the law and the prophets, and by others that have followed their steps. For the which things Israel ought to be commanded for learning and wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must needs become skillful themselves, but also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without.
He said a lot right there. What is it that he's talking about? He's talking about how important it is to become skillful at understanding the law, how important it is to get skillful at understanding our culture and its importance with our success on the earth. Read that last sentence one more time.
But also they that desire to learn be able to profit them which are without.
Right. It says they which are able to learn are able to profit them which are without, because ultimately your skill is your ability to be an example for other people that don't have the same skill as you. Your skill comes from you being able to apply God's laws so that you can improve upon your culture so that other people can see that and inspire them to do better. Go ahead.
Both by speaking and writing.
That both by what?
Speaking and writing.
And what language did they write in? Because before we were in Assyrian captivity, before we were in the Greek captivity, before we started assimilating ourselves with other cultures, just like how we are in America, right, with English and Spanish and everything, we spoke Hebrew. Read that part again.
Both by speaking and writing.
Both by speaking and writing. That's why we write our language. That's why we speak our language. Go ahead.
My grandfather, Jesus, when he had much given himself to the reading of the law.
All right, like my name is Jacob, but I'm not the Jacob from Genesis, right? So other people in the Bible had the name Jesus, right? Because it was a name. It was a name that was used more than once. And the book of Ecclesiasticus was written by a man named Jesus, the son of Sirach. His father's name was Sirach. So he says his grandfather, his name Jesus was actually a name that was carried over. His dad gave him, basically, his dad gave him his grandfather's name. That's what he's saying. Go ahead.
And the prophets,
Mm-hmm.
and other books of our fathers.
And other books of our fathers, like what? We know the Torah being some of the books of our fathers, but then you look at Samuel, Chronicles, Kings, right? Proverbs. That's what he's talking about, of our fathers. That's how you know this is an exclusive family oriented book, because it's talking about our lineage. Go ahead.
And had gotten therein good judgment.
Go ahead.
Was Darwin on also himself to write something pertaining to learning and wisdom,
Keep going.
to the intent that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to these things.
If you start falling in love with the scriptures, read Ecclesiasticus, read those chapters, read Wisdom of Solomon, read those things, because the wisdom that you get from them helps you understand the importance of the law, right? Just like how the New Testament helps you get a perspective of the law. You should be addicted to reading the Bible, but we get addicted to watching Netflix. We get addicted to playing video games. We get addicted to every distraction that keeps us from practicing this, because our enemy knows that if we don't practice this, we won't be as powerful as we need to be on this earth. Go ahead.
Might profit much more in living according to the law.
Go ahead.
Wherefore, let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention.
Right. That's why when we read Ecclesiasticus is such a heavy book in the Bible, right? Just like how Proverbs is, just like how Ecclesiastes is, which most of the scriptures, right? Obadiah, they all serve their purpose. This book, and what he's explaining is, this book is supposed to help you become more addicted to understanding the law. That's what Ecclesiasticus is about. And so it gives you a lot of wise sayings. That's why it's called Wisdom of Jesus, the son of Sirach. That's what Ecclesiasticus means. Go ahead.
And to pardon us, wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret.
Right? So remember, at this point in time, that the Apocrypha, as it is written from different languages, because we were among the Greeks, we were among the Persians, we were among the Babylonians in the times that those four beasts started to reign on the earth. So our language had changed. And what he's saying is, we want to try to understand the Old Testament in its most original form. Read that part again.
Right. And to pardon us, wherein we may seem to come short of some words.
That's why it's important that we understand the ancient Hebrew, because when we read the Old Testament, like we do during Sabbath service, we're reading the most ancient version of it. And so he's apologizing beforehand, because he's saying, we understand the law, but say you understand the Bible, but you grew up learning the English version of the Bible. You grew up with the English version of the Bible when the Old Testament had definitions for certain words that could give you even more deeper understanding of it. So Ecclesiasticus, this man, Jesus, the son of Sirach, he's apologizing before he even starts to write anything. That's why it's important that you read this prefix. And then he tells you this. Go ahead.
Which we have labored to interpret.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
For the same things uttered in Hebrew.
For the what?
For the same things uttered in Hebrew.
Go ahead.
And translated into another tongue.
Uh-huh.
Have not the same force in them.
Have not what?
The same force in them.
So when we read the Bible in English, it says that what about it?
Have not the same force in them.
Now you understand how powerful it is for us to come to Sabbath service. You see how important it is for us to learn this alphabet? Because when we pray in this language, we pray for the destruction of our enemies, volcanoes erupt, wars break out, floods start to take place. tsunamis. We don't realize that that's what's happening when we pray in this language. But you see so many people, you see a congregation make it to the Passover after all the sacrifices that it took for them to get there so that we could pray together. Things start to take place around the globe because what? Read that last sentence again.
Have not the same force in them.
Go ahead.
And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books
Go ahead.
have.
Salaki, go ahead, sir.
At the same time we was at Passover, or the day of the Passover, it was a news article came out talking about they had an outbreak of tornadoes. You know what I mean? All over the earth. You know what I mean? All over the earth there was outbreaks of tornadoes. I don't even know what that is. But you know what I mean? It's like coronavirus outbreak. It's an outbreak of tornado.
You know, that's heavy too, because the scripture says that the Most High maketh his angels to be ministers, right? Servants. Making them, he turns the angels into flames of fire. He turns them into whirlwinds. He turns them into these elements that we see in this realm, but really it's commanded by the Most High because he sees us reading in this language rather than in English, because it shows that our progression towards coming back to our culture is much more than when we were in the 1940s trying to learn Christianity and trying to pray in English. Than when we were converted from the Spaniards to read in Spanish and to pray to our God in Spanish, right? Now we're at the stage where we're even closer to our culture, we're closer to our language, and now the Most High is hearing our prayers more. Why? Because remember, the scripture says, they that turn their ear from hearing the law, their prayers shall be an abomination. Right. Remember, when in our ignorance, we weren't following the law. But not only are we following our original language, we're also keeping God's law, statutes, and commandments. So the Most High is hearing our prayers, and he's hearing it more loudly because we're reading our original language. That's what Ecclesiasticus was. He was telling you right here, he said, let me apologize beforehand because you may get this in some other language. It's not as powerful as it was originally intended when it was written like this. You see? Did you want to add anything to that?
No, I was gonna say when we came back, you know what I mean, France is over there chilling with China.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, Russia. Yeah, Russia, China.
No,
yeah,
Russia.
Russia.
The French president.
Yeah.
The French president went to go visit China.
Yeah, that's a continuation of Ezekiel chapter 37 or 38, one of those, where it talks about Gomer. Yeah, which is the geopolitical land of what we know today as France.
And that's heavy. It's heavy there because in history, you know what I mean, the French was the first allies of America. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's the heavy. They're the oldest ally of America.
You know what?
You're absolutely right. America would have never defeated the English if it wasn't for the French.
If you ever, now I've never even seen the movie, but I understand this reference. You ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
You know that when they talk about "Thou shalt not pass this bridge," that actually was a phrase spoken by the French in World War I, where they would say it, and they were saying this in French to the Germans because the Germans were taking over France, and the French got their butts whooped. And then the Americans had to come and save them. The British had to come and save them in that war. You know what I mean? It was World War II. World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
World War I.
World War I is when they made that statement, though, because they actually were able to hold their ground for a certain amount of time. But they still ended up needing help. And what's even crazier is that every country they went and tried to fight Russia ended up losing the war. And now you have the winter season when Russia is really starting to take over. It's just that the Ukraine is the same people, so they're both used to that kind of weather, you know. But that causes a lot of complications for any kind of conventional warfare, whether it be in the trenches, whether it be, with tanks. Remember, World War I is when tanks were introduced to the battlefield,
right?
And
World War II was when the planes came into play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as for like bombing purposes and things like that. Now the crazy thing is all those things are happening around the world, and meanwhile we're struggling to learn this. This should be like if you had to choose between learning this characters or going to fight in World War III, what are you going to choose? It should be a no-brainer. You know what I mean? Coming to Sabbath service or having to dig out of trash cans for food like the Ukrainians had to do when they ran out of supplies. I mean, look at what the world's going through. It gives you a better perspective and appreciation for what stage we're at in our recovery from our former state, where we're actually being renewed back to our original strength, a strength that had been stripped from us by the people that enslaved us. And so we should take, I don't want to say pride, but we should take admiration in the fact that we still know that this language is for us, right? So when we go over the alphabet, matter of fact, this is a good time to do it. You could drop that. Was there more on that, Javier?
Kind of good one.
That's the part we needed for now. I want to test you since you're an officer. As an officer in Isupk, we're gonna have you. Let's see, ancient. I'll make it a little bit easier this time. All right, and then Syrian. Now, what we like to do is when we start the class off, we want to have people come up to the board, and I want you to try to write down the character that I call out without you having to look right here. Now, you can still look if you need to, but I want to see where you're at as far as how sharp you are with it, because if you get better at doing this, when we hold Sabbath service, you're going to be better at reading it, right? So let's see what you got. First character is Ma.
Ma.
And if there's an invariant, make sure you write that too.
The invariant? I forgot how it goes like that.
That's the invariant, but what's the regular one?
From Ma? Like,
No, that's the ancient.
oh yeah, that's ancient.
Right?
What was it? Syrian. Yeah.
It pretty much looks exactly the same.
No.
Oh, you said no?
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly the same as the box.
Oh, hold on.
Remember, it has the little lip on it.
Got the lid like a fitted cap.
Yeah, like a fitted cap,
You talking
right?
like this?
Oh, this.
Yeah, you keep going. You got it. Keep
Only
going.
thing missing is the bunny popping out, right?
Keep going.
The bunny popping out.
That might be
Yeah,
before his age.
like that.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it.
It is like a fitted cap.
Like a fitted cap. Go ahead and erase that. It's been a couple weeks.
It's been
Yeah, you're a little rusty. Give me the character Ka.
Ha?
Ka.
Oh yeah. Ha. Let's see.
Ka. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's correct. Like a ladder, yeah. There you go. A ladder and a table.
It's ka. Not ka. Because ka.
You say ka.
I did. That's why I tried to pronounce it a little stronger the second time. Ka. Not to be mixed with ha or ka. Those are their own characters. All right, go ahead and erase that. We won't torch you. We'll just give you a couple more. Give me a Tazah.
Tazah?
That's a hard one.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
It's a hard one because it's got an invariant too.
We don't use this a lot.
We don't actually. It's like a Z.
Like, you don't see it in the what's the name?
If you had to write Captain Katazah's name, you'd be using the ladder, and then you'd be using this character.
I got a question for you though.
Damn.
I got a question for you, bro.
You could drill me next.
No, I'm good. I got a question for you when you get back up there.
I don't think I'll be using this like that.
I don't want to drill you.
Tazah.
Tazah.
Come on.
Man, I don't want to lick you.
I had Tazayara up here doing it. He was starting to get the hang of it. We was doing this every week, and he was getting it. He was struggling with the Assyrian, but he was getting it. And that's probably gonna have to start.
Is it?
Come on. And for those that are watching, you can see it on the bottom right.
That's not it.
So you already know what he has to write before he does. But he's being prideful. He doesn't want to look at it.
I don't want to look at it. Because I know it. It's just
Tazah.
Tazah.
That's like something.
It's like a Z, right?
It's like a Z.
Tazah is like a T and a Z put together.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I don't know how to write it though. I forgot how to write it.
Then look at
I'm
it.
gonna have to look at it.
It looked like a stick with smoke coming out of it.
Man,
Yeah, and the other one looks like a Y.
Why?
Yeah, see,
Man,
it's a T and a
right.
Z.
It's a T and
together.
a Z.
Tazah, right?
the
There you go.
oh, it is the Y. No, it's
That is a funny looking wine too.
I mean, that's the best way to draw it.
That's good though.
Very-
That works. Now, what is it when it's the invariant? What there you go. Exaggerate the downstroke because that's what you're going to see on the app, right? It's a longer character than the other ones when it's an invariant. Except for mom. It's just a square.
I got a question about the Tazah.
Go ahead.
So you know how we have a Tazah, like actual, right? But how do we know when it's a Tazah or a Tazah?
Tazah. The rule of thumb is this.
Wow.
The rule of thumb is this. If they're next to each other, just go ahead and use it.
Do you put the Z in the front of the stick when you do it? Like the character, do you put the when you say did you say Zata?
Tazah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you gonna do one more. One
One
more.
more?
Yeah, let me do one more. Give me the character God.
God?
Yep.
No, because there's a Za, there's a Ta and a Za. So how do we know, like, when we say Captain Katazah or
instead
Yatazah?
of using those characters, how do you? I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we got a trooper in the school named Taza Yar, right? Well, is it Taza and then Yar, or is it Taza Yar? Because remember, there's what he's saying is this.
Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah. Here's Ta
Right.
and here's Za. Here's Taza. So the rule of thumb is if they're right next to each other in that order, then just use that. If you know what I mean.
Okay. That makes sense.
So you say Yatazah, we use the Ya, Tazah, and the Qua.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exact. What did I say? Ga.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. God.
Oh my God.
I know it's bad.
Ga. Should be easy. Remember when you had to do the test, you had to write down the tribe of Gad, right? It's just a Ga and a Da. It's different when you get put on the spot. And you have to do it in 2 different alphabets. That's not easy.
Oh my God. Damn. No, I'm not.
Ga.
Duh.
You know, whenever I see Ga, it reminds me of those little skinny dudes from Men in Black, right? They're always hanging out, and they always got their tummy out. They're always like, "What's that?" You know, they're always tripping, right? That's what they remind me of every time I see it.
To remember.
That's God, right? All right, so go ahead and try. Copy art, you go ahead, because like I said, I'm not gonna make you do anything I wouldn't do, but we all have to practice it. It should be an everyday thing, and it should be a part of your life. Go ahead.
Qua.
How is it? Qua?
Wow.
Wow.
How long you been doing this?
Long enough to remember. Qua.
Wow.
Qua, which means circle, which is interesting because this looks more like a jellyfish, but the actual character qua means circle, which is weird because nowadays we think of Q, right? But in its ancient Hebrew form, the actual character qua does mean circle. Go ahead.
A Ta.
Ta? Ta, like a target, or ta, like a piece of toast. That's how I remember it. When you're talking about in the morning, you make you some toast. That's how I remember ta. Right?
Ha.
Pa. Good one. Pa. Here. And little hangman pa.
Okay.
Wait, there's an invariant.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
there is. The invariant goes like this. Right? So pa actually, now I got this right here. Check this out. Pa means mouth.
Pa. So I can say pa when you talk about mouth? Like,
Yeah, there was a cat that I knew named Tazapa, and he named his son Pa Yasharala, which means the mouth of Israel, because he would never stop talking. His name was Pa Yasharala. And that's a mouth, right? Like Pac-Man, right? Right? Once you got him going, he just kept going, you know. Go ahead.
Ha.
I got a question.
You just keep going.
Has this tiny little gap right here. That's how you see, because ha looks like it's a table that's all connected. This is connected, right? But ha, you want to have this little gap here. And when you look at it on the app when you were reading during Hebrew class or the Sabbath service, you're gonna see it look pretty much like this. It'll look just like that. That should be good. Do one more, and then we'll move forward.
Blah, 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 blah. Sa.
Sa.
Yep.
Sa. Right? There's that. And then now the way I remember Sa is here's what's gonna trip you out. It's an S. It's just an S, and then they went like this. Right?
Yeah.
And this reminds me of like a dude with like a cowlick as a hairdo, and he's just like, "What's up, dude?" Like that's not remember. It's stupid. It helped me remember it. Right? So that's how you come up with ways to remember the characters. You know what I mean? Some of the other ones, and when you're writing, you want to work on your actual legibility, right? And knowing the difference between them, right? They look similar, but they still this looks more like a rake. Shah means tooth, I think. Yeah, teeth. Right? That makes sense too, because it looks like teeth. Sharp objects, right? So there's your characters right there. Every character actually it's a hieroglyph in the sense that it actually is an image of something. Each one does that.
Yeah, like Ha was
The cattle head,
the
right?
bull's head,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Da is like a door.
Yep. We could go over. So what I wanted to do today is to, just for the sake of, introducing the language, I'll use some basic vocabulary, right? So let's go with
A question.
Mhm.
So now I'm thinking about it. When you said the mouth, you were saying like the mouth.
Pa.
So how would you put words like that together if we were putting them in a sense like so you say mouth or like when or like speaking like what does speaking mean in Hebrew?
Well, we know that the word speak is it debar, I think.
Yeah.
Debar, or what's the one we always see when we're reading? Is it Amar? No.
Speak to the children of Israel.
That's a good question because
That thing, yeah.
there's different versions of different words. You know what I mean? So when we go into, say if I go here and I look up the word mouth, mouth is a physical act. It's a part of somebody's, body. But to actually speak is an action. It's a verb. So they are different. They are different altogether.
Oh.
So let me see. Speak. I can pull that up here. Speak. Speech. Speak is debar. I'm only writing this to help you understand. When I write a little hook like this, that means pronounce it by itself. When I connect it with the other one, that means you want to start with this pronunciation and end with this pronunciation. Da, ba, ra. But a lot of times in Hebrew, when you have a root word, we call this a root word, right? Because this is before I say anything like he speaks, or you know what I mean? Like before I start adding all these things to it to modify it, this is the root word. And in most cases, the end word is connected with the character before it. So dabar, da, ba, ra. That's just dabar. And then same thing in the other language. It would be da, ba, and then ra. Right? Same exact thing. It's just the other alphabet, right?
There's not no what's name at the bottom of the ancient Assyrian, is there?
You mean like connectors?
Yeah,
Connectors don't actually exist
in the ancient Assyrian, right?
in any Hebrew. They don't exist. We just have it. We're using it as a tool to help us learn the vocabulary. That's what it's there for. If you were to open up like when we have the scrolls, you may or may not actually see the connectors there. The connectors will definitely help you out with reading it.
These are the connectors.
Yeah. Yeah, you should, like, if there's a scroll, we got a scroll right here. If you were to open it up, it may have the connectors in
They
it.
have the connectors.
Right, because we actually have brotherhood. We want to help our people read it. The enemy, they just assume you already know it, so they just have it without the connectors. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what that is. But I wanted to show you, let's get a couple other examples, right? So here's a word. Slab. What do we use that term for? A slab of beef on a stove. We use it, slab of concrete. Well, this is a slab, right? This concrete here. No, in Israel though, nowadays this also means chariot too. So it's so if I were to write this down, it'd be lawach.
He called it to a slab because it's close to the earth. That's why they call it a slab, because it was
In modern language, like in like Israel today, a slab is a car that's just a big old box, right?
No.
It's like just an overweight car that was made of metal. It's like a slab. It's like boom, and we put some rims, and it's just a big old car.
A slab is a slab because it hits the ground. That's real talk because it's low to the earth.
Okay, so let's say lawach, right? This word. So if I were to put this in a sentence and I say this is Kabar's slab, right? Say Kabar, right? This isn't just like if it were to belong to him, then we would have to add what to the end of the word? Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Lawachwa would make it his slab. And of course, this means Kabar.
Also, Kabar slab.
Yeah.
Also, you would have to put the wall to be Kabar slab, or
Yeah,
you
to
say
show
Kabar.
ownership.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to focus so much on sentence structure. We're just helping you understand how we take a root word and how we can make it belong to somebody, or how we can make it like we're preparing the word for a sentence, right? We're going to start with that so that you can understand that, right? It's kind of a loose example because it's technically slang in a future tense, because cars didn't exist back then. But what did we do? We have? We had chariots, right? So if I were to go with, let's say I actually use the word chariot. Chariot. Whoa. The more vocabulary that we see, the more that we can appreciate it. And in fact, I encourage you to actually either take photos of these or take note on how these are pronounced. Because mind you, when the chariots arrive, you should be able to pronounce what it is in Hebrew, right? So why not? Chariot is, I'm going to write it syllables so that you can see. Mara Ka Path. Marakapath means chariot, right? So
That was some cool one. Maracapá, a name like that?
Marakapath, right?
Maracapá.
This means chariot. Yeah. Now, whose chariot is it?
Peace.
Ya'ala is another frame that we call the Lord's, right? So, the Lord's chariot, the chariot of the Lord. More specifically, Lord's chariot.
You say your Allah?
Yes. That's why whenever you see a brother with the name Ya'ala at the end of their name, it usually has, like, when they explain what their name means, it says like say their name was Zion Ya'ala or something like that.
Yeah.
It would be weapon of the Lord. You know what I mean? What's an example? Yakal Ya'ala. Yakal is the root word. Ya'ala means of the Lord, right? So I'm just giving you this example, Lord's chariot. So how do we pronounce this? Marakapath. Marakapath.
So it would be Allahaya?
That's no. That means that means power.
Okay.
Alhaya means power, and Yahweh, of course, is just the sacred name. So that's a little bit different. Because Lord is literally Lord, and the Most High, or He. What is it? I am. That's Yahweh. You know what I'm saying?
I understood that. I'm talking about like Allahaya.
Now, I'm still keeping the root word together, but now I'm adding this to it to make it possessive to me, my chariot, right? My car, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to put this in a sentence, you'd be saying Marakapathya. See how that works? So think of it like this: possessive adjectives. These are modifiers that you could use on any word, and it will modify it to, you know what I mean? Say you use the word food, right? Nawa. Add nawa to it, it makes it belong to all y'all. So if somebody was asking like, yo, whose Popeyes is this? And then you want to let them know, no, it's for all of us. You would add nawa to either the word chicken, or you would add it to the word food to let them know that it belongs to everybody, right? Or if it was specific, it was like, you see how it's left in the bag? Usually if I have leftovers and I don't want nobody to touch it, I'll still tie it up in the bag, right? And I'll just, you know what I'm saying? Or if I'm, hopefully I'm brotherly that day, I'd be like, yo, there's a little extra in there, go ahead. And then I might even say, that's for you. You know what I'm saying? So if I actually take the actual word food, let me see if I can find it. Food. There's flood. I'm tripping on. It's on the tip of my tongue. I actually had it remembered, and then now I can't find it for the life of me. Let's see what else we got.
I think that's my book.
Oh, it's your
What's another word?
I don't even remember.
I'll see if we have it on here.
Amazon or something.
Any particular words that you may want to ask about?
Food.
I was just looking for it.
Can we do greetings?
Greetings?
Yeah.
Like shalom? Okay.
Yeah, like how we greet.
Okay.
The officers and things like that. Like,
Oh, she's talking about like the greetings, like Yahweh Shema,
So for her, it'd be. I'm gonna write it in the Hebrew first because it's more fresh in my mind. Oh,
It's more like a prayer, and like Yahweh watch over you
oh,
in the name of Yahweh Shai, in the name of Christ.
okay.
when you're even putting that structure together, you're actually saying a very important thing. This right here is the 4-letter word. Remember, it's all consonants. There's no vowels. Yahweh. Yahweh. I'm using both, and it's the same thing. Yahweh. This is kind of usually wa is just like barely going over and then down. Yahweh, right? That's the Most High's name. Matter of fact, whenever you heard Native Americans, you ever? Oh, by the way, I'm gonna send you copy. I have a link to the website for the Native Americans in San Antonio that keeps track of powwows that take place in San Antonio.
That's me,
Huh? Oh, it was okay. I thought I sent it to you already.
No, you ain't said it.
Okay, so I'm gonna send it to you. So that the reason why I brought that up is because when you go to the powwows and you hear the Native Americans, they'd be like, "Hi, how, hey," it's like that's stuck. That has stuck at least. You know what I mean? They Cherokee language, Navajo language, Seminole. They all have their own, tongues and stuff that have changed over time. But mind you, when you read all the archive books from like the 1600s, the 1700s, the friars, when they would come across Native Americans, they were hearing them use the Most High's name in their ceremonies. They were using that in their greetings. They would say Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh Allahayanawa, Yahweh Echad, which is from Deuteronomy, where it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." They used to tell them that. Like that's how they would greet each other. That's crazy, man. But the greeting, right? Yahweh, Shema, which means watch, right? Shema. I need to actually erase this. We're just gonna focus on the Hebrew. Yahweh, Shema, okay, just Atha. No. Wait. Atha. Yahweh, Shema, Atha, Ba, Ha, Sha, Ma. Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Did they say Barak Atah? Yahweh Shema Atam B'Hashem Yoshai? No, because they finished it right there, right?
No Barak. No.
Huh? There's no Barak.
No.
Okay,
No
cool.
Barak.
So what are we saying? Yahweh, Most High, Shamar, watch. Al.
Over?
Al is like a
It's kind of like a filler.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like Al.
Yeah. Watch. Yeah, it's like one of those ones that's like a tie-in that doesn't actually mean anything. It's like a flare.
Because it's not over as watch her or watch me, watch them.
Oh well, a thigh. See, that's where you would have a thumb if it's more than one person.
Or a thong.
So say you're saying it to one person, you. Bahasham, in the name,
Reputation.
and then Christ or Savior. So take a picture of that. Most High, watch you in the name.
It's like watch over you.
Yeah.
Basically.
Most High, watch over you in the name of Christ. The of doesn't like there was no like word.
There was no
It was
over.
just kind of like we fill in a lot with the English language because we're trying to adapt to how we talk now. But we in Ebonics or just how Black and Hispanics talk, we just try to shorten the sentence as much as possible.
Can you do a thon so she can know about multiple? Like, if there's multiple.
Them.
Watch
Thon,
over.
thon. Well, I don't think it's a thon. I think it's a thon.
It's like you all.
Okay.
I want to put y'all though.
That's how we talk.
Yeah. Y'all, all y'all, right? Because a thon, now see how that changes from a thon?
Oh,
Now it's
I Chris y'all
thon. There you go. I had to take the H out, so I put it in there. Most High, watch over y'all in the name of Christ. Man.
So whenever you repeat this back to us, let's go say it.
A thon, because usually when we are saluting the sisters, that it's more than one of us, right? Like Sabbath service, there's always more than one priest, there's always more than one brother. And but if, say, for instance, if say Yahweh Shema Tham Alatha, because it might be one sister that's in the audience, right? Or if we know that they're tuning in online, we'll say a thon anyways, because that's what makes it plural. A thon. Yeah. I usually just say a thon just because.
But if it's just like sis was just here, you know what I mean? Y'all just want a thon, but I shouldn't y'all shot. You have to sit a thon because you was just talking to one sister.
Exactly. Like if it was like in person, face to face, then that just for the sake of being accurate, that's what you would say.
Can we do the for the men?
So what for the men? Yes. So this is a standard phrase.
This is a greeting for the men.
Yes.
That was the greeting for the women. Though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
You will never use this one. The one that we're doing right now, you will never use it.
Okay, so I won't use this when I'm greeting.
You won't use it for nobody. You only use the sister's greeting.
Okay.
You know what I mean? This is for when we use to greet the officers or another brother or something. Yahweh.
That's what
Y'all
I'm
make sure
saying.
you
Like,
shower
when
the
I
top.
greet the brothers.
Yeah, you use the one before the sisters.
Okay.
And you
You still, even if you're greeting brothers, you still use
The one before.
the one for the sisters. Yeah. Now, what's the difference between a tha and a thumb? A thumb is used when you're greeting more than one male. A thon, or more than one, but you're using a phrase like this. Like if somebody is greeting an entire congregation, usually we separate that, right? We'll do one for the men and then one for the women. And then a thumb is, remember we said a thon when it was multiple females, but a thumb, remember, because male is masculine. So the ma is what we use for that. Oh, so what we're saying is Most High, in the name of, or just in the name, technically,
reputation.
Christ.
That's what got me when I seen the name, and I was like, it's like reputation, because like even no matter where, your name means something. You know what I mean? Whether you in the streets, whether you have a reputation of being just a good brother, like your name is your reputation. Like so.
This means plural.
That's why it says nobody's gonna know Christ when you
Name.
his name.
Because nobody's gonna know his reputation. Everybody think he's a soft, gently, cuddly.
Yes. You know what I mean? That's what everybody think. Yeah? Oh, it's like,
Well, he comes back all masculine, and you know what I mean.
what?
You should take note of this, because what I will do eventually is I'm going to start writing the prayers. We go over the prayers, but when we go over the prayers, what are we doing? We're reading English characters. Now, let me just say this. Here's what I want you to be at. Because during the Passover, you were hearing brothers speaking the Lashawan Qadash when they were reading the. But They went hard, but I took a sneak peek and I seen that they had it like the way we have the prayers, right? When we write it, it's where we have the English characters. Yeah. All I'm saying is this. I want us to be able to. This is what I want. Now, trust me, there's a big benefit of being able to read it without any assistance, right? Because that's what makes it even more official. You want to get on that level and be able to read it like this. Why with no English characters?
How why should
Like it would say we get to school, right? And I put the Lord's Prayer on the wall and it looks just like this. I want you to be able to read it without you having to look at anything else, right? That's what I wanted. I want that for us. That's why we drill these characters in your mind, so that you can, take that, carry it over to Sabbath service, understand how to jump into it and pronounce the characters, or at least take a stab at it, and then and like what is it that Ecclesiasticus? What did Jesus of son of Sirach say? He says, reading and writing, because all of it shows that you are addicted to your culture, right? That there's more power behind it when you really own it. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Kabir.
I was gonna say the whole Hebrew language is split up into male and female.
Matter of fact, there is something that I'm supposed to have on the board. So we have the possessive adjectives that are added at the end, but we also have prepositions, which Officer Dalladar wants me to put on here too. We're going to be starting to go into this too. We actually have already done this already. But what this is if I take the word shamar, right? This is the root word. Possessive adjectives are words that you add at the end, and prepositions are the ones you add at the beginning. So like when you ever see somebody say, Waya Dabar, that's when you're reading the Bible, it says, and he said, right? That's probably a better example because that's the one that you see more than anything else.
I'm like ha.
Yeah. So
Right.
if I say da bar, which means to speak, right? There's the bar, right?
On the bar.
Mm-hmm.
On the bar, right? Would be like I speak.
Here, let me show you. So, ha equals the,
Yes.
right?
You see that on the prayers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
It messes everybody up.
Why? We've already seen this. Means and, right? Yah means he. And you know what? Technically, tha. I'm gonna write this because this is what I keep seeing. Slide here. Means she. That's what I keep seeing. So I'm just gonna write that. And then ka means as. La means to. Right. Let's go to an example. Right. This thing, we might have to get some new markers, man, because these are getting kind of dusty. So, yeah. We've been using them a lot, right? Yeah, sure. Okay. So when we do the Sabbath service, the priest will come up to the front, and then basically the reader's going to come up to the front, and the priest will pour them a glass of wine, and then the reader is going to take a sip. But before they do, they say to Israel, right? Here's a preposition. To Israel. So what are they going to say? Here's the root word. And then we're just adding the la to it. La yashar Allah. Now, the word Yashar Allah means Israel, okay, or Prince of the Power. La just means to Israel, okay. So I'll just give you an example of that, right? If Waya, right? This doesn't have to be Debar, but we're just going to use that because that's what we see a lot. This is the base word, Debar. Debar. Waya just means and he, right? So now it's saying and he said. You see how we're doing it? So when you're looking at it in Hebrew, it's all one. Like you see all these characters together, and it's kind of intimidating sometimes because you're like, man, that's a lot of characters. How do I even pronounce that? But then you start to realize that a lot of these are prepositions and possessive adjectives that are added at the beginning and the end of the word. So you're able to kind of more or less know where the connectors are supposed to be because you start to see a lot of these words more often. If it was, and she said, and I'm going to give you an example to finish off the class today, it would say, Tha. Wa Tha Dabar. Tha. Oh, I actually mixed up the ancient with the, there it is. Sometimes I do get them mixed up. So it says Watha Dabar, and she said. Now, how can we see an example of this? Like I said, I want to give you an example. I usually like to end the class with something that we can leave on the board so that when brothers come in throughout the week, they can take a glance at it and try to remember it. So, let me see. Genesis 29. Verse 32. Now, before I do this, I want to let y'all know the app that we use during Sabbath service is the Bible Hub app. You can get it on Android or iPhone. Yeah, the Bible Hub app. When you click on it, you're going to see different things here. Bible commentary. You want to hit interlinear. Interlinear is where it's going to give you the Bible, but it's also going to show you the language that it was originally written in. So say if I go to this scripture here, Genesis 29 and 32, let me navigate that real quick. 29. Remember, it's called Bible Hub. Copy, y'all, go ahead and pull that up real quick. Genesis 29 and 32. There we go. Genesis 29 and 32. We're not going to use the entire sentence. We just want to get an idea of the sentence structure here, right? And I'm going to draw it in the ancient Hebrew, but you're just going to tell it to me and go ahead and read it.
Genesis 28:2.
29 and 32.
It's already dark.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait till that 10 o'clock dark comes.
It's been getting dark earlier.
Yeah, they will.
Didn't it just get scooted back though?
Yeah, it's just start getting dark later.
You said Genesis 29:32.
Yeah, Genesis 29 and 32.
What's a heart?
Yep.
Laha. La.
Mm-hmm.
With the lab.
Exactly.
Bond.
Finish it. Bond. Right. That's it. And what did we just say? We said watha, which means and she. And the word here that says har, which means conceived. So it says and she conceived.
Where's the so she? So conceived.
Yes, it's the same thing in this case.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I'm putting a square around it so that you can see how this pieces together. Wa tha har. Who are we talking about? Leah, right? La'ah, which is funny because we think of la'ah. When we see la'ah, it's usually when we say la'ah, like is in no. Khan means yes. La'ah means low. No, it's just these two characters. But her name is la'ah with the ha at the end. Little boy going off, man.
Oh no, it's a dog chasing him.
Oh, I would have been screaming too.
I would have.
I would have been screaming.
That's kind of funny. I ain't gonna lie. All right, so now we're gonna read it. We're gonna understand why it looks like this. Okay. And she, watha har, okay, conceived. That's the word har. It means conceived in this case. So watha har la'ah. It says and she. You see how the word bear lad. That's a good one to remember because when you think of like the people from England, what do they always call young children? They call them a lad, right? Which is kind of what the word bear means right here, because we're talking about the beginning of a young life, lad, watha lad. And she, just like how we use watha right here, and she conceived, watha har. And she bare, watha lad. You see that? Son. And we know what that is, ban, right? Ban. Just like how when we state our registry, when we're getting ready to read for the Sabbath service, we'll say our name, and then we'll say ban, and then our tribe, and then we'll say ban, and then Yasha Allah, right? Like Kapayar, we'll say Trooper Kapayar, ban Yahawada, which means son of Judah, and then ban Yasha Allah, which means son of Israel. That's it, true?
Yeah, you say true. No, it was officer.
Yo.
Officer.
Like you.
Yeah. Officer true.
Don't tell nobody I did that. Taziyah, right? Kapayar.
Damn, Taziyah presence tells me.
Chupu Kapayar. No, just kidding. Kapayar. And then what are we saying? Ban.
Wait, it's like, has he taken his test yet?
No, he hasn't.
Damn.
Should soon.
Nah. I messed up, my bad. Yeah, sure. I'll make up for it. So this is your registry right here. I just wrote your registry. Right? Notice I didn't do ta, za, right? I put ta, za. What am I saying? Read this sentence. You read this. You say this every Saturday.
Oh yeah. Officer Kapayar.
Read it. No. Read it in Hebrew.
Oh, really?
Kwatazayan, Kapayar, Ban, Yahawada, Ban, Yasharala.
Oh, that's what that means, officer?
Kwatazayan? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you put Quatazayan on it. Oh, I see that now.
That's why when I put everybody's name in
It
my
says
phone,
Quatazayan.
I said, I can't believe I said true.
I think you can do that next.
What?
How to do the troopers and the officers and captains.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Quatazayan.
We say it in the prayer though. That's what I'm saying.
It's different for your every greeting that you speak to everyone.
No, this
No,
this
that's not in this case. But when we do the blessings prayer, you're going to see that we pronounce all of the ranks.
Yeah.
Like when we say,
we do.
we say, ha, yeah,
We do it.
yeah.
The sisters.
The sisters. Oh, we do.
That's why we say Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and then we say,
Matazaf Yah.
we say Barakatah Yahweh, Wa Yahweh Shai, right, which means Most High. Wa, it goes back to this. Wa means and. Wa Yahweh Shai. Wa Mayaka Allah, which means and Michael, right? The Archangel Michael. So we go Christ. People always try to say, oh, the ISUPK, all y'all carry. I mean, y'all trying to puff yourself up. Y'all always trying to say that y'all, you try to be prideful about your rank. No, but when we pray, the first thing we do is we give credence to the righteous order. We go the Most High, Christ, the Archangel Michael, and then what do we say? Wa Mayaka Allah, Wa Allahayim, the powers, right? The angels. And then we say Matazab Ya'ah, which means commanding. Alawap Yahana, which means general Yahana. And then we say Ha Alawapim. What does Ha mean? The, right? Ha Alawapim. Ha Saranyam, which means captains. Ha Kwatazayanyam. Now, actually, notice that I'm saying Kwatazayan Yum, which means plural, right? Ha Kwatazayanyam. Ha Chayayalyam, right, which means the troopers. Waha Akwathium, which means the sisters. And the sisters. Waha Akwathium.
He said Akwatyan.
Yeah. Exactly. That's on point. We're gonna do that whole entire prayer next class, unless brothers need to go over some of the test stuff. You know what I mean? So this is your registry. But I'm showing you that because I'm showing you this character right here, Ban, is this. So Leah is conceiving. But what are we seeing here? Instead of saying Waya, because that's what we would use if it was a he, we're saying Watha, because that's when we're saying it's a woman that's doing it, right? So when you're reading during Sabbath service, you're going to see that if it's a woman that's the subject of the sentence. If it's a man that's the subject of the sentence, it's going to say Yah before the root word of pretty much every word that it can apply to, right? And we kind of covered quite a bit there. But did anybody have any questions? Any vocabulary questions? Oh, I meant to leave that on the board. Oh, well. That's all right.
Taziar? I don't know. Come on. Where? Go. I don't know who those people are, but they just.
All right, no sweat. So we definitely covered quite a bit today. Again, we're going to really start hitting in on these prepositions and these possessive adjectives, and I want to start expounding on our vocabulary, and then we're going to use more examples of how we add these to the vocabulary words that we bring up so that you can start to build your repertoire. We know a lot of words like tawab means good, right? Ayendabar means thank you. Shalom means peace. But we're going to start to get more and more deeper into our vocabulary that we can practice and use every single day so that we can become more our day-to-day usage. So with that, we'll go ahead and end the class right there. Again, it's been Officer Yalawan, Banzabalawan, Banyasha Allah with ISUPK. It started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, 1969. We are under commanding General Yohana here to teach the truth for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians that they are the real Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Shalom.